Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are diving into one of the most visually magnificent and philosophically profound stories in human history. Imagine an ocean, not of salt water, but of pure cosmic milk. Now imagine the greatest forces of light and darkness, gods and demons, forced into an unthinkable alliance to churn this ocean, using a mountain as a rod and a giant serpent as a rope. This is the Samudra Manthan, or the churning of the ocean. Found in ancient Hindu texts like the Mahabharata, Vishnu Purana, and Bhagavad Purana, this is much more than a battle between good and evil. It is a map of the human psyche. It tells us what happens when we dive deep into our own minds, facing our most toxic darkness to ultimately find the nectar of eternal truth. Let's begin the cosmic churn. Our story begins with a catastrophic mistake. Indra, the king of the Devas, or gods, was riding through the heavens on his magnificent, four-tusked white elephant, Airavat. On his path, he encountered the volatile and powerful sage Durvasa. The sage, who had been in a state of intense penance, offered Indra a sacred garland of heavenly flowers that radiated a mesmerizing fragrance. But Indra, blinded by his own ego, casually took the sacred gift and placed it on the trunk of his elephant. Attracted by the powerful scent, a swarm of bees began to irritate the massive beast. Annoyed, Airavat threw the divine garland to the ground and trampled it underfoot. Sage Durvasa's eyes burned with unimaginable rage. He saw this as the ultimate desecration. With a voice that shook the heavens, Durvasa cursed Indra and all the Devas. He stripped them of their strength, their energy, and their cosmic fortune. The golden light of the gods was extinguished. With the Devas weakened, the balance of the universe shattered. The Asuras, the fierce demons led by King Bali, seized the opportunity. They attacked, defeated the Devas, and claimed dominion over the three worlds. Desperate and powerless, the defeated gods sought the wisdom of Lord Vishnu, the preserver of the universe. Vishnu gave them a shocking solution. The only way to regain their immortality and strength was to obtain the Amrita, the nectar of eternal life, hidden deep at the bottom of the Ksharasagara, the ocean of milk. But there was a catch. The gods were too weak to do it alone. Vishnu instructed them to form a diplomatic alliance with their sworn enemies, the Asuras, and promised them an equal share of the nectar. However, Vishnu secretly assured the Devas that he would ensure the nectar ultimately belonged only to them. Driven by the promise of immortality, the Asuras agreed. The greatest collaborative effort in cosmic history was about to begin. To churn an ocean, you need tools of unimaginable scale. The towering Mount Mandara was uprooted to serve as the churning rod. But the mountain was so colossally heavy that as they carried it, many Devas and Asuras collapsed and were crushed to death beneath it. Lord Vishnu had to intervene. Flying on his giant eagle Mount Garuda, he revived the fallen, carried the mountain to the center of the ocean, and placed it in the waters. But instantly, the mountain began to sink into the milky depths. To save the mission, Vishnu took his second avatar, Kurma, the giant tortoise. He dove beneath the waves and supported the massive mountain on his impenetrable shell. Next, they needed a rope. Vasuki, the giant king of the serpents, agreed to be coiled around the mountain. The Asuras, driven by pride, demanded to hold the serpent's head while the Devas took the tail. This incredible scene is immortalized in stone today at the Angkor Wat temple in Cambodia, where a stunning 49-meter bas-relief shows exactly 88 Devas with crested helmets and 92 Asuras engaged in this epic cosmic tug-of-war. With a deafening roar, the churning began. As the mountain spun, the friction created immense heat and chaos. The first thing to emerge from the depths of the ocean was not a treasure, but a nightmare. A thick, boiling, black-green venom erupted from the waters. This was the Halahala, a lethal poison so toxic that its mere fumes threatened to annihilate the entire creation. The Asuras were burned by the fiery breaths of the suffering serpent Vasuki, and the cosmos stood on the brink of destruction. The gods and demons fled in terror, praying to Lord Shiva. Showing the ultimate act of sacrifice, the serene Lord Shiva scooped up the devastating poison and drank it. But to stop the poison from reaching his stomach and destroying the universe within him, his wife, goddess Parvati, firmly grasped his neck. The unimaginably hot poison was trapped in his throat, turning it a brilliant, glowing blue. From that day on, Lord Shiva was known as Neelkantha, the blue-throated one. With the poison cleared, the churning resumed, and the ocean finally began to yield its divine treasures, the 14 Ratnas. One by one, miraculous gifts surfaced from the milk. First came Kamadhenu, the golden white wish-granting cow, given to the sages for their sacred rituals. Then came Ucheshravas, a breathtaking snow-white horse with 7 heads, claimed by the Asura king Bali. Next was Airavatar, the colossal 4-trunked white elephant, taken by Indra to be his mount. The ocean gave up the Kaustubha, the most flawless, brilliant gem in the universe, which Lord Vishnu placed upon his chest. Then emerged the Kalpavriksha, a celestial tree with unfading blossoms that grants any righteous wish. Beautiful celestial nymphs known as Apsaras, such as Rambha and Menaka, gracefully danced out of the waves. But then, the waters parted to reveal the ultimate embodiment of wealth and prosperity. Goddess Lakshmi, seated upon a pink lotus. Radiating grace, she bypassed all others and chose Lord Vishnu as her eternal consort. Alongside her, representing the duality of the universe, emerged her sister Jeshtha or Alakshmi, the goddess of misfortune. The treasures continued. Varuni, the goddess of wine and intoxication, taken by the Asuras. The glowing Chandra, the crescent moon, which floated up to adorn Lord Shiva's hair. The fragrant Parijata tree, Lord Vishnu's divine conch, Panchajanya, and his mighty bow, Sharanga. Finally, the waters stilled. Out of the depths rose Dhanvantari, the divine physician and father of Ayurveda, and in his hands he held the ultimate prize, a golden pot containing the Amrita, the nectar of immortality. Instantly, the fragile truce shattered. The Asurs, driven by greed, violently snatched the pot from Dhanvantari and fled. The Devas watched in horror as their chance at immortality slipped away. But Vishnu had a plan. The air shimmered, and a woman of impossible, mind-bending beauty appeared before the Asurs. This was Mohini, the enchantress, and avatar of Lord Vishnu. The Asurs were completely mesmerized by her. Blinded by lust and pride, they agreed to let her distribute the nectar. Mohini smiled, sat the gods and demons in 2 separate rows, and began to pour the glowing Amrita. But with a sleight of hand, she poured the nectar only into the cups of the Devas, giving the Asurs ordinary water. However, one Asura, named Swarbhanu, saw through the deception. Using dark magic, he disguised his monstrous form to look like a glowing Deva and slipped into their row. Mohini approached him and poured the Amrita. He raised it to his lips and drank. But from across the row, Surya, the sun god, and Chandra, the moon god, spotted the shadow beneath his disguise. They cried out, exposing the demon. In a flash, Mohini's soft expression turned fierce. She summoned the Sudarshana Chakra, a spinning disc of divine fire, and hurled it. The disc sliced through the air and severed Swarbhanu's head just as the nectar touched his throat. Because the Amrita had touched his lips, his head had become immortal, while his body fell dead. His head became known as Rahu, and his body as Ketu. According to Hindu mythology, Rahu forever chases the sun and the moon across the sky to swallow them in revenge, creating solar and lunar eclipses. Once the Devas consume the nectar, they regain their cosmic strength. Rejuvenated, they fought back against the furious Asuras in a massive celestial war, ultimately defeating them and banishing them to the underworld, restoring harmony to the universe. The Samudra Manthan is a spectacular tale, but its true power lies in its deep psychological and spiritual symbolism. Ancient scholars weren't just writing about a literal ocean, they were writing about you. From a psychological perspective, the vast ocean of milk represents the human mind or consciousness. The Devas and Asuras represent the duality within us all. Our positive, light traits, our inner angels, and our negative, dark impulses, our inner demons. To achieve true self-realization, you cannot just suppress your shadow side. You must integrate both forces to do the heavy lifting of self-exploration. Mount Mandara, the churning rod, symbolizes concentration, the ability to hold the mind steady. The tortoise Kurma represents sensory withdrawal, offering a stable foundation so your mind doesn't sink into chaos. The serpent Vasuki is human desire. You can only manipulate the rope of desire if you have strict control over it. And what about the Halahala Poison? When we first begin to meditate, do shadow work, or improve our lives, the first things that surface are often our deepest pain, traumas, and toxic thoughts. Lord Shiva represents the discipline and courage required to confront this suffering, hold it, and neutralize it without letting it destroy us. Mohini represents the delusion of pride and ego. The story warns us that even as we gain spiritual treasures, ego can distract us from our ultimate goal. Only by maintaining concentration, facing our inner darkness with the courage of Shiva, and seeing through the illusions of the ego, can we finally obtain the Amrita, the nectar of enlightenment, wisdom, and inner peace. The churning of the ocean is happening right now, inside your own mind. What treasures and what poisons will you bring to the surface? If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Samudra Manthan, hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments which of the 14 Ratnas you think is the most fascinating. Until next time, keep seeking the truth.